Luke chapter 17, Jesus encounters the 10 lepers who cry out to him, "Lord, have mercy." And he tells them to go to the priests. As they are going, Luke tells us they were healed. And one of them comes back and thanks Jesus, and Jesus says, "Stand up and go. Your faith has saved you." Jesus says those words to countless people in the Gospels. Your faith has saved you. But does that mean that we are saved by faith alone? We may hear from many Christians, many other denominations, that we are saved by faith alone. That's not actually what Jesus taught. That's not actually what our Christian faith, what our Catholic faith has believed for the last 2,000 years. What we believe as Catholics is that we are saved by God's grace working in us and renewing us. And that grace renews us by faith working through love. We see that even in this encounter Jesus has. That it is the Samaritan's faith that saves him, Jesus says. But this faith was demonstrated by their action of walking toward the priest, which was already this demonstration of their faith, this physical demonstration of their faith. We see it in Jesus' encounters with the woman who is caught in a hemorrhage, has a hemorrhage. She touches the tassel of his garment, expresses her faith. And it's that faith, Christ says, which saves her. Jesus sees the 4 friends, or the friends of the paralytic, lowering the paralytic down to the roof. He sees their faith. He says, this faith has saved you. But again, their faith is demonstrated by this act, by this work. This work of what? This work of mercy. Jesus says in Matthew 25 that at the end of time, we will be judged based on what? Whether we've had faith? No. Rather, whether we have lived the works of mercy. He says, he separates at the end, Matthew 25, the sheep on the one hand and the goats on the other. The sheep are the ones who are saved, the goats are the ones who are damned. And what Jesus says to those on his right, the sheep, those who are saved, he says, "Come, you blessed of my Father. For when I was hungry, you gave me food. When I was naked, you clothed me." To the goats, to those who are damned, he says, "When I was naked, you did not clothe me. When I was hungry, you did not give me food." The judgment that Christ lays upon us is a judgment based on works of mercy. On faith, yes, but on faith that works through charity. And that, in fact, is exactly what Paul says in Galatians 5, verse 6. Paul says that you used to think you were saved by circumcision, brought into the people of God. No, it's not circumcision anymore. It's faith. But faith alone? No. Faith working through charity. Galatians 5:6. That's what James says in chapter 2 when he says faith without works is dead. That we have faith, yes, we believe in Christ. But that faith must be demonstrated through works, especially, considering Matthew 25, especially through works of mercy. We even see this, so we might look at Romans 10, verse 9, right? If you believe in your heart that Jesus is Lord, you confess with your lips that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. But even that has this physical, external, demonstrable expression of faith. So for all of us to be saved, we must have faith, yes. But our faith must act in works of charity. And this makes sense if you think about it, because God's grace renews us. He renews our whole being. He renews our mind, yes. Enables us to think, to believe in Jesus, to say, yes, Lord, I believe in you. I believe that you are the Son of God. But does grace stop there with the renewal just of our minds? No. It renews also our hearts. It enables us to make decisions. To make decisions to show our love of God. To do works of mercy for others. As human beings, we can think, yeah. We can also make decisions. And God's grace in its process of renewing us renews both of those. It renews our minds, and that yields faith. But it also renews our hearts, and that yields charity. From the beginning, the church has lived this and believed it. So you see from the beginning the church taking care of the poor, taking collections to serve the poor, to care for the poor in Jerusalem. You see the church setting up hospitals. Once she had some public sway, setting up hospitals to care for those who were sick. You see the church creating institutions, where we can demonstrate our love for God through learning about his world that he's created. You see the church, Christians, going to the poorest of the poor, the untouchables of Calcutta, going to the lepers of Molokai. Why? Because they had faith, and that faith had to be demonstrated through charity. because that is what Christ taught us to live. That is what our tradition, that is what our church has carried on, handed on to us. The Council of Trent said that we are disposed to receive God's righteousness when what? We receive faith by hearing. When we are raised to hope in God's mercy, and we begin to love Him, to love God as the fountain of all justice. That is how we are saved by God's grace. Through faith, through hope, and through charity. That is what the church believes. That is what Christ taught. And that is why I am a Catholic.